and welcome to another episode of Speculative Speculations. I'm Varsha.
I'm Chris.
Carl.
I'm Jared.
And I'm Steve.
And this is a series where we talk about speculative stories in all their forms. We have a brand new member today joining us.
Yay.
And Carl, would you like to introduce yourself? Nice.
I love being one of the popular kids. This is great.
The sarcasm
spared.
runs strong.
This is really the bottom of the ladder.
These are shoved into lockers. Like no one bothers letting you out. Sort of gang it together for survival. That's what this is.
That's it.
We're just all stuffed in the same locker. Is what it is.
Stuck in the same
It's the script. We're just trying to be that one kid that is trying not to be the total bottom of the pack. You know, that just people will just go easy on this week. You know, everybody has.
Just like in the book, bigger groups helps.
Exactly.
Strength in numbers.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I like that.
So Carl, introduce yourself.
I'm Carl. If you do listen to any of the other page chewing affiliated podcasts, you may have heard my voice once or twice. Most recently, I've been doing a read along of the Malazan Book of the Fallen and all the other Malazan books with Steve and Varsha and our friend Dan. And is Dan on this podcast usually? Is he?
Yeah.
He makes an appearance. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, there you go. I am big sci-fi fantasy nerd. I actually wrote an epic fantasy novel and self-published it, Truth of Crowns. It's an epic fantasy tragedy. I got some laughter there.
I was having flashbacks from the trauma I've endured from the book.
PTSD. Yeah. What else to say about myself? I don't know. I don't know what all I'm supposed to do to introduce myself. I'm just a guy here who likes to read books and is happy to talk about them.
Yeah.
Cool.
Sounds
good.
Sounds about right. So I forgot to do this when we were doing introductions, but today we're going to be talking about chapters 10 through 17 of Parable of the Sower by Octavia E Butler. We're going to be finishing the book for the next discussion, which may skip a week, but depending on the order in which I post these online, you may not skip a week when you listen to them.
Sucks to suck.
The short story for today is The Visitors by Arkady and Boris Strugatsky. As usual, we're working our way through the big book of science fiction. The short story for next week is Pelt by Carol M. Schwiller. That's pretty much it. So, Parable of the Sower, chapters 9 through 17.
Great job.
And so good old laugh a minute, wasn't it?
Yeah. Good old what a minute.
Laugh a minute. Yes,
So
I mean it was just hilarious. Every time you turned the page, there was just another good happy-go-lucky event happening.
Yeah, it was. I read Mott earlier last week. This was funnier even than
Terry Pratchett eat your heart out, right?
Yeah. The tears you see falling down my cheeks. These are tears of joy and laughter. That's what they are.
Indeed.
This was such a happy read.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, it was grim. It was super grim.
Listen.
Oh yeah. I warned you guys. I warned you.
So you know how we talked about how it seemed like Road and Earth abides together last time. This felt so. Road only mostly had suggestions of violence. We got to see very little on the actual page. This one is like we're getting to see the actual violence on the page. Well, actually, a lot of it is dealing with the aftermath of violence. It's not like proper. It's still mostly suggestions of violence, but it feels a lot darker.
Very dark, yeah. And powerful too. It really hits you in the gut. You know, especially when you have like her one-line entry. Today, my parents had to go down and identify the body of my brother. And that was the only entry for that day. It was just like so powerful and gut punching in that moment.
Yes.
when
Oh my God.
when her brother had been missing, and all the stuff that he was doing and stuff like that. And like you've been warned the whole book that it was not a good idea for him to be doing this stuff. And of course,
Yeah.
boom, that gut punch hits with that just one line entry. It was so well done.
Brilliant writing. What a great choice there. Just, oh my God. Yeah. Talk about
And
a
sorry, go ahead.
character too that's like easy to hate, but you're still
Mm.
like, he's tragic. He he was of course going to be his own death, and lo and behold, it's brutal. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. And it also follows the scenes in which she's starting to make up with him or like
Yeah.
feel
Mhm.
less hateful towards him.
Yeah.
And especially the one about her birthday, it ends with him like giving her a kiss, and if not her opinion of him changing very much, he seems to be warming up to her a little bit.
Yeah.
And immediately the next line after is, we had to go identify his body, which that hurt a whole lot.
Yeah. It was also an edit,
And that's
our
the high
page turn.
point.
Yeah, that's true. It was a page turn as well, so it was the top of a page for me. That line. So it was literally a flip and then that line. I think the other thing that I
Oh,
think is
really?
interesting, yeah, I think the interesting thing for me about it is the sort of foreshadow it a little bit by saying, when Keith first starts going out, and there's lines to the effect of something like, at night only, thieves and bad people come out. And she's basically saying, I'm worried for Keith. Keith's outside at that time, but obviously the implication is that he is one of those thieves and murderers and that kind of stuff by very virtue of being outside. But at that stage, she can't reconcile that is what he's doing. There's sort of get this kind of, maybe he's just dealing drugs. He's not actually doing the really nasty, heavy shit, and that seems to be society. And it also is like a window, or that whole series is a window into how effed up the world is in general, like, because they've been sort of living in this like enclave that's been protected by the walls and the guards, and sure, there are things that happen, but you don't see the enormity of the depravity of the world at that stage, and this section just sort of opens that door.
Yeah.
What's really hitting me hard reading this is how relatively realistic this post-apocalypse is compared to a lot that I've read. A lot of times there's something, I mean, whether it is like there's a literal fantastical element, I guess there is a fantastical element in the fire drug. That's, I mean, but it feels like a thing that could be real, right? As opposed to like zombies where you're like, no, that's not a thing. Sorry, zombie lovers out there. But which is not a criticism of like more fantastical post-apocalypse. I just mean it for me makes this even scarier, where I'm like, holy shit, like this really could be like I live in Los Angeles. Like this is like, holy shit. Like what if this was us? Like it and in some ways it does feel eerily.
Yeah.
I mean, God, it starts off in 2024. I like, when I saw that, I like shit my pants. I'm sorry, I don't want to get you demonetized. But it's
money.
You can only use what you have, Sal.
We have to be monetized first before they can demonetize us.
Fair enough.
And I've been marking our episodes explicit for a long time now, so say what you want.
I forgot. This is the Locker Kids Club. We're good. People take your money. They do not give you money.
It's a net loss.
So yeah, no, it just feels so real. Like there are still parts, I think, like some of the violence is like maybe slightly exaggerated to like or dramatized, like I'm not sure I believe that everything would be quite that extreme in this scenario, but all that said, it's terrifying. I mean, this is a horror novel. If it's the last thing I read before bed, like I have trouble falling asleep. It's just deeply disturbing because of how deeply real it feels.
Oh, I thought that's just how California was.
That's true, actually. Yeah, it's
maybe
basically
metaphorically, right?
Yeah.
But,
That reminds me of this TED talk I rewatched the other day by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I don't know if I'm saying her name
Oh
right,
yeah,
but
that's
the author
pretty
of
good.
Half of a Yellow Sun. It's called Dangers of a Single Story. Have you guys listened to it?
I haven't seen the
Anyway,
TED talk, but yeah.
one of the examples she gives is somebody walked up to her and said, "It's such a shame that the men in your country are so bad," because she wrote about a sexual abuser as one of her characters. And so she responded by saying, "I read a book called American Psycho. It's such a shame that everybody in America is a psycho killer." So, yeah.
Everybody
Yeah.
on Wall Street's a psycho killer. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty true.
But yeah, highly recommend that TED talk. It's been I've been thinking
Very
about
good.
it. I re-listened to it recently. So
Nice.
anyway, back to Parable of the Sower.
Well, in relation to the story, and how this is being written out, I thought a one line was very relevant to how she's approaching the story, and it was, in most stories, you have the star or hero who outsmarted or overthrew or escaped the company. And she said, "I never seen one where the hero fought like hell to get taken in and underpaid by the company." And I thought that was just a really solid, statement about the state of society, and beyond the violence and the the thieves in the night and what have
Yeah.
you. But it was just a statement of society that you the company actually, it's that they're hiring to give you as payment protection more than making a living, and it just really spoke to the state of things right now in this story. Yeah.
Well,
Again, speaking to like the realism, like that observation, that was another one that really stood out to me that she had, where it's like, yeah, like the majority of people are not, gonna be, breaking out of the uber evil mega corporation, right? They're gonna be like desperate to work a desk job, filing paperwork and like getting yelled at by their manager and
At
crap like
Amazon.
that. It's tough. It's
But one of the things that I actually found really interesting about it is they sort of painted the mega corporation as the evil, right? And almost like an anti-capitalism statement, or say that actually they will just keep on taking even when there is nothing to take, kind of thing. But ultimately, the people who did go and join the thing were safe, and everybody else was sort of murdered in a short space of time. So I think it was a nice sort of flip, because you were worried about this kind of the give the allegory and all that. It was like the mafia and all that. It's really the ultimate bad, but really it wasn't in the long bit of things. Like, people were just taken, and even if they escaped, they were brought back and murdered in the same place again, which was pretty gruesome. Even though we didn't see it, we heard it, by second hand effect. So
right. No, yeah. I mean, the corporation is clearly exploitative, but in many ways, like, it's an understandable trade to like go under their thumb when people are just out raping and stealing and murdering. It's like, okay, that is probably better.
Yeah. Well,
It's a tough world.
yeah. Well, just to go along with that, there was the line a little bit later after that where she said, she was talking about the other town, Oliver, and she said the security in Oliver isn't much more attractive to her than the security Keith found in his urn. And I was just like, that's the trade-off. It's like, that life, that security is, to her mind, equivalent of death. And it makes you wonder, and that might be the idealized, look of youth upon life. When you're younger, you think you can do more than what is offered by the authority. So I thought that was it was a great line from a 17 or 18-year-old's point of view on life there.
Yeah. She and I think if I remember correctly, immediately after that, she says, "Oh, maybe I'm wrong, and this is actually what is right." But then the tone in which
Yep.
she writes about that is like, "Yeah, no, I don't agree. Like, I'm just saying that to sort of hedge that I could be wrong." But yeah, there is an interesting discussion there about
Yeah.
lack of freedom, like living with a lack of freedom versus the security that it gives you. But also, all of this was sort of hinted at a little bit in the beginning of the book, with everything being expensive and even water costs a lot of money. Like, water is more expensive than food. So it's not that people are scavenging everything like like the situation was in the road. Everything had fallen apart. You still have to buy stuff. That means somebody is profiteering off of this bad
Still
situation
commerce.
that the
Yeah.
world is in. Yeah.
That's what made it feel so realistic to me. Is there are still institutions, there's still things going on. It's not like that. It's just all anarchy, because the end of the world likely wouldn't, or a sort of apocalyptic event likely wouldn't lead to just complete anarchy. It would lead to these like hollow institutions, chugging along, and of course corporations would continue to try to make a profit and take advantage of the opportunities of this fucked up situation. And of course some people would just go to desperate scavenging, and and people that having walls, like walled neighborhoods, and like it all just feels real in a in a frightening way.
Yeah.
And I guess to a certain extent, the false sense of security that gives you, that you don't have to prepare for anything. She was the only one who was prepared for things to go bad.
Yeah.
And when she tried to talk to people about it, they're like, no, no, I don't want to listen. I mean, that's not quite what they said, but it's pretty much their
Yeah.
attitude. What did you think, Steve?
Well, as far as the protection goes, the first thing I thought of was like the mafia, where you pay for protection and they keep you safe and you're in debt to them. But it also reminded me a lot of fantasy books that we read with certain kingdoms and things, that you're safe behind their walls, but you're also oppressed. You're just a cog in the wheel, and you have roles, and if you can be ostracized and you can be exiled and kicked out, and if you're on your own, you're pretty much dead in a lot of these worlds that we explore. But also it kind of reminds me of governments too, because they're big corporations too in some ways, and you're indebted to them. You pay them for the protection they give you, because there's people who protect you and keep you safe, and they all profit. I mean, all the politicians profit. So of course it's a much bigger conversation to have there, but it is kind of just the way that the world, because we all give up freedom to be protected in some way. I mean, of course I'm not going to say that there's levels to that. I'm just saying that the system is the same. It's just on a smaller level.
Yeah, these levels are put into a microcosm in this book, and made more extreme,
right?
For the purpose of the narrative, and so she can tell the stories you wanted to. Yeah,
because all tragedies, all emergencies they're all, someone is going to profit off of them, whether it's
Right.
People, like pharmaceutical companies or certain other private protection companies who so it's just a profit driven business. Like you said, it's just more of an extreme version of it. It's more of there's not as much subtlety, but yeah, it's a very interesting theme to kind of explore.
And it was interesting how, like, it's not that she goes into it very deeply about it, but there's strong economic arguments in this as well, like the idea that employment is still a thing. So people that had PhDs and degrees are actually still very sought after in this world to earn money, but the corporations are kind of using that idea to hire those people in good wages, knowing that their kids and the next generation after them cannot get education and cannot get PhDs and cannot be hand off, so they will have to work for very cheap labour at that stage. But they get the families in by the protection, get the skills of the really the elite within society, and then have a long-term plan. It's very sinister in a lot of ways, and I think that's why when you're reading it for the first time, you kind of go, "Oh, this is really bad. This is not good. Nobody should be going there." And yet, events transpire.
Well, yeah, it's a question of freedom versus security. Like, wait, what, on those dials, like, what are you willing to like, how much freedom are you willing to give up for whatever level of security? And I don't know that it's because freedom itself is a sort of form of like security, and that like you having an ability to live freely, are you really any more free out in the wild where you could be like raped and murdered at any time? If you have a gun, that helps, but it's not right. Like it's not like a black and white situation here, right? And that is very thoughtfully portrayed here. I mean, similarly, the hyper empathy was something that I was curious to see. Like, it's just an interesting idea, and that it doesn't stop her from acting and like killing people and doing, she's got a real edge to her, right? And she makes a lot of difficult choices, does a lot of really hard things, hurts people, and just kind of sucks it up. And it's a really interesting take on empathy, that like, even though she is quite literally hyper empathic, the most empathic you could imagine being, she is still capable of great, violence when she needs to be, and of thinking selfishly and doing selfish acts. That empathy doesn't just mean, that suddenly you're this selfless, fully compassionate martyr. It's much more complicated than that.
Yeah, and it's a great contrast to have her inner self-empathy be a condition, a medical condition, but it's so inner, it's so inside her, and it's a great contrast with the bigger picture stuff that we've been talking about up until this point. Now we go into her as a that's specifically a self picture of her, so it contrasts great, it's a great contrast to the big picture stuff that she's speaking about on the outside. And her situation and her relationship with these new people that she's chosen to survive with is very personal. And I just love how she contrasts the personal stuff with the great big picture stuff, and it's just so well done.
Well, and what I love too about this portrayal of hyper empathy is that, I mean, kind of going off of what I was saying earlier, is, she acts just like everyone else, in a way. I mean, she's a survivor just like everyone else. And so it's like, I think it would be really easy to have kind of a simple moral of like, hyper empathy leads to like greater kindness, leads to like more communion among within communities, that sort of thing. But like it proves, here, that like that's not enough. Like, what you feel with someone else, like, it can help, and but it can also be a hindrance. And it certainly isn't going to stop people from acting out their animal needs, fighting to survive, doing, stealing is the first thing that comes up, right? Like, stealing, you would think, is, pretty morally repugnant. She was judging Keith for it earlier. And as soon as she's put in that position, she's like, we have to steal. This is the hyper empathetic one. That didn't stop her. She knows what it's like, both intellectually and emotionally. She can like feel people's pain, and she still says, no, we're going to steal because we have to survive.
And interestingly, and I feel like I should have seen this coming, because we talked about this last week in terms of like, how is the hyper empathy going to play out? And I think we kind of thought it's going to be extreme pain, but actually, in the context of where this left off, it starts off with her feeling pain from people hitting each other or bleeding. We got a sense of actually she can sense the love making as well, so it kind of gives a different spin on it later. But I think the other thing that it gives her is a way to manipulate and control people and convince people to do stuff. Because if she can sense what their emotions are and what they're needing in life, she can get them. This is how she can grow her flock. In terms of in the very simple case of the baby, the kids, the parents with the baby, she knows that the way is to provide security for the baby, for them to get them to join her, and she only needs to plant the seed and then walk away, Earthseed, whatever way you want to say, and she will be able to do. And her ability to sense other people's emotions and their needs is the bit that's going to give her that power, I feel, going forward. And I feel like I should have seen that coming from further away, because the religion, etc., was very much telegraphed from the start. You know, that was going to be a part of it. Now she gets through it, and her poetry's all nice, but it's going to be done through other means.
I bet that woman, unless she dies, which is a very real possibility, but the wife that just joined them, I bet she is the first disciple.
Yeah,
I just have this gut with how quickly she latched on. That's the shot I'm taking here, because it's got to start somewhere, and she's kind of giving the vibe.
All right, careful, because Chris is famous for bad predictions.
Bad predictions.
Do it. We can compete. Who has the worst predictions?
Oh, you're a long way behind, Carl, but yet I'm still very confident every time I say something. For somebody with such a shoddy record as me, I'm still like, yeah, this is what's happening.
There's the other interesting angle to the hyper empathy is also that she does more visibly cruel things, or at least according to, I forget the name of the guy who's with her now, Michael. She's being unnecessarily cruel because she wants to save herself from pain. Like, he doesn't know at the time that that's what she's doing. But so to your point, the hyper empathy isn't making her more empathetic, but it's making her cause more pain, or be more willing to kill so that she can reduce her own pain. Which again, this sort of, if she was empathetic on her own, maybe she would have done differently, but this is enforced on her biologically. And so because of that, it reminds me a little bit of some stuff in Wars of Light and Shadow that I don't want to talk about for spoilers, but when this sort of feeling or thought process is enforced on you, how do you behave in those circumstances versus if you develop them naturally, I think is an interesting perspective there.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, you definitely struck a chord with the Wars of Light and Shadow thing. That's very relatable. Yeah.
Something that I wanted to talk about, it hit me so hard. This was like, oh my God, when the dad disappears, that was just crazy. And then the fact that they never find him, they don't know. The arm ends up not being his arm.
Yeah,
it's crazy. And it's interesting because the door is open that he could theoretically still be alive. He could come back into the story, and that could be powerful. That could be interesting. That seems like the obvious narrative choice. I almost kind of hope he doesn't appear, and he's just gone. He's just gone. She never finds out what happened to him, but presumably he's dead. Because what a just brutal way to go. I mean, again, talk about realism. He just disappears, and they just can't find him. Nothing they can do. They don't have the resources, and it's too crazy out there. That shit was powerful, and I mean, and when that happened, you were like, okay, it's all downhill from here. And lo and behold, it was all downhill from there.
Center of the community went. I sort of felt that was a little bit telegraphed. As soon as he didn't come back one day, I was like, well, he can't be dead because they've already done that emotion with Keith. So what's the more powerful thing to do with his character? And that, in the case, is that the lost people. And then ultimately what happens to the brothers and the mum is that she doesn't see it, but she gets secondhand account of their things. So you've done all three of them. She spoke with Keith. She knew it happened. Keith very directly got resolution there. She got the thing where she had no resolution, and then the third one, which she had to accept the resolution from other people, even though there was no real evidence and stuff. So, again, I feel it's all very... Telegraph's probably the wrong word in some ways, but I think it's very clear narrative choices for each of them. but that each of them gives a different emotion to the reader. And they often say books are empathy machines, and I think that's really what you're doing. You think, God, the worst thing, God, that brother getting killed, that one line was a real cut. But as you say, Carl, the idea of never finding out what happened, the person who's literally the center of that person's life, but also the entire community, and there's no sign of him whatsoever. Like he was only a bit away the last time he was seen. Like what could have happened to him? And it's hard to take.
It's worse, right?
Yeah.
Than just him turning up dead. Because if you have a body, like there's at least some closure. You can like properly grieve. But if there's no body, a part of you will always wonder, is he still out there? Is he still alive? And so that wound will never heal.
Yeah.
And that raises tons of other questions as well. If he is, why didn't he go back?
Yeah.
All those things,
Yeah. The other thing, like on that subject of not only being able to properly grieve until you find out, when the three of them, the way both Zara and is Michael the name of the other guy? Michael, right?
I think it's Will.
Will? Okay. Zara and the other guy, Will, right? The way they react when she tells them whose bodies she saw from their families. Like Zara's been saying everybody's dead, nobody would have escaped, we are the only ones. But it seems that none of them have registered it until she tells them, I saw their bodies, and then their expressions change and they react. So
his name is Harry.
Harry,
Harry.
yeah.
Yeah.
We were all miles off.
Okay, Harry.
I don't know what was going on there. That we were all just like completely out to lunch on that.
Well, to be fair, you said Will, who is Harry's brother, Prince William, Prince Harry. I don't know if that's some weird,
true, maybe
weird
that's
association there. And Michael, there is a Prince Michael as well.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh dear God.
Yeah. So that I thought that was an interesting extension of what you just said about not registering grief, but also for Lauren, whose name also I didn't register until well into the book, because first person narratives, I think sometimes I just never find out the character names. Even for Lauren, all the three significant losses that she had, she didn't see any of them. It's all sort of secondhand information about her brother. They went and identified the body, and the dad disappeared, and Zara told her what happened to Corey and the boys. So she could, in theory, live in denial. Like we don't know yet how well she's accepted it. I think we know a little bit from how infrequently she writes or what she says about the difficulty she had writing or what's going through her, but she doesn't talk about it very much in the journals.
Yeah, one of the things that actually really struck me
is typical. For a journal.
Yeah. One of the things that really struck me as being powerful.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Chris.
So the most chilling part of it me is when she went back to get the stuff from the house, and other people were wearing her brother's clothes. They were looting the house, and they were wearing like Gregory's shoes, Gregory's jeans, all that kind of stuff. Like, can you imagine what that's like when you're trying to root for any signs of life or what happened to people, and yet there's just people going about saying like they died for us. That was again a really chilling line, with people kind of going around the fact that other people suffered. Other people suffered to give them hope. It was like, oh God, that is again another like exclamation point for how dark and depraved the world is or has gotten. Even though there is civility within it, that actually that's a acceptable thing for people just to be walking around looting houses and saying, oh, whoa.
Yeah, and her like she's scavenging as a stranger in what used to be her own home, and she like that reaction she had to the kid who was wearing her brother's clothes, but she's like not feeling too poorly towards them because there's a dad person that she sort of connects to her own dad. Yeah. So all very powerful stuff, and a lot of it is like sort of single statement punchy things, which like if you skip over you might lose. So yeah.
And I love that the highway scenes, like the whole description of how the people were traveling on the highway, and how, when they had to get off and when they had to, use it, and that whole, just like, most people were going north and there was a few stragglers going back south, and it just made you wonder why. And that, I just love the visuals I got for that description were just very powerful. And it really, because one of the things you said was, it's illegal to travel these highways,
Yeah.
to walk on the highways, and it's like, okay, what's illegal anymore? I mean, really, what is they're redefining their society as this situation goes on, and I just thought that was just so well done.
What a great visual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's great. Reading that was like, it tickled my brain. I'm like, I drive down the 101 all the time. Like, it's fucking crazy. I think of people, just like hordes of people just walking down here. It's wild.
Yeah. And fires are
Yeah.
illegal. They're allowed to set fires
in the
because of
face of-
forest fires. That's another thing
Oh
that's illegal.
God.
Oh yeah.
Well, that is illegal, actually, right?
Yeah. And people really pay attention to the laws in this world.
Yeah.
Selling water by yourself is illegal, apparently, but
Mhm.
that's illegal too, right? Yeah. People do that. And yeah, the description of the commercial station where they got water from, it's like a petrol bunk where they had to go host themselves some water and get it out. And yeah, that scene with the ocean water too, where she's like
That's
trying to see
right.
if the water will seep up and she can actually use that, but not without a lot of processing, but she has some alternative means of acquiring water. So yeah, a lot of brutal survival stuff going on.
God. Yeah.
And then it turns like incredibly political for a while, because it then talks about a lot of, again, we say this must be every episode, about how science fiction fantasy books are really about the present and not about a dystopian future or otherwise, but how dangerous it is to be a mixed race or mixed cultural group, the danger of gender and misidentifying gender. And a lot of the characters, actually, if you notice in it, have got these very gender non-specific names. Like even Corey, the mum, is both male and female. I sort of thought the Lauren was a bit of a stretch, because to me that was very female. Because even when Harry identified her the first time as Lauren, I went, well, I thought she was supposed to be masculine and she should have jumped on that. And it happened a couple of lines later, but it was definitely one of those things that it becomes very much about. And that, again, I think this is where her flock comes from, is from the people that are sort of, at least initially, on the edges of society, under threat and the most vulnerable, are the people that are going to respond to your message.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it was really interesting how she, when Harry asked her to read her journal, and she was so excited about it, but she had to hide that back because it's been her dream to spread the religion to more people. And then she has all these thoughts about how she needs to be careful about which one she shows them. And she's really cherry picking which passages she
Yes.
shows other people, so that like they in her own words, she's just planting the seed so that they think about it a lot later. It'll come back to them. And just like apparently some of the verses of the Bible do for her. So all of that, I think we talked last week about the genesis of a religion here. The depth with which that is explored, I think, is pretty fantastic.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's very. I think it's wonderful how she's pulling that off in this story, and how she's planting the seeds of this religion. Maybe even a little bit slower than the protagonist is, for us, the reader, and it's just so, it's sparse, and it's the occasional parable and the occasional saying, and then it moves on with the story of how she's surviving and stuff like that. And I think that's a very good point, Kyle, that you brought up about the mom of the baby being a possible first disciple. Because because I think, who is it that's reading? She's reading aloud, right, to them.
Yeah, she's letting Harry read it, but Harry's reading it aloud, I think, for Zara, and then she's
Harry's
going through.
reading it aloud. That's right. Yeah, right. And so I think that's very important too, that somebody else is reading her quote poetry aloud, out loud, and that because it gives it a sense of weight that her husband's reading it aloud, and I think that has a different effect than just still a teenage kid reading her own scribblings aloud. You know what I mean? I think it has a bigger effect that it's being done in that manner, and it's just wonderful, beautiful.
Absolutely. I think her perspective on it is really interesting too, that like her approach to it, she's not trying to, she's not preaching, not yet. She's not, coming at this from a place of any sort of cynicism of like wanting, at least not explicitly wanting to like become powerful. Like she just like genuinely believes these things, came to these philosophical conclusions, and she wants to share that with other people and create, her own flock around her. And so far, she's not trying to say that she, can do miracles. She's not, kind of like a lot of the classic things you would expect from a prophet. She is not attempting. She is remaining very grounded. And I'm curious to see if that continues going forward, or if she starts to kind of get caught in the trap of the prophet. We'll see. I suspect she will have to grapple with that. But so far, she's just very like, she doesn't seem like, in a very explicit way, what you'd expect of someone starting a religion, right? She is very subtle, and again, isn't a huge talker, or at least not about this stuff, right?
Yeah.
She's just planting seeds.
And it's almost cult-like. I thought when I was reading it, it's like she's trying to formulate a cult rather than a religion. She's praying. Well, praying's again the wrong word, but she's identifying people that will be conducive to joining her. She isn't going up to everybody. She isn't in a position to be able to do that yet. All she has is this one gun between the three of them.
Yeah, she's not proselytizing. She's very deliberate in choice. She's using choice deliberately. Yeah.
And it is manipulative, no doubt. Yeah. But empathy can be a powerful tool for manipulation.
Yep.
Yeah, and she's had, the training of her father, which kind of set her up for this, and she's also had the instructions of her father to not reveal her empathy problems, and to how to hide it and how to deal with it without giving herself away. And so it took some time for her to reveal it to her new partners in survival, and she did it out of necessity, just to make sure that they knew, so that for protection reasons, and how to approach certain conflict situations. And so it's very but we saw that with her father, in the way her relationship was in the house earlier, and so it makes perfect sense that she's approaching this reveal of her religion in the way that she is.
Yeah, and we see that she can practice her sermon. Like she had one like sermonizing session like the week her father disappears, and she does a pretty good job. And that was her first time completely untrained. So when she's had time to like think about it and build on top of it with thoughts and beliefs that she actually is behind, I think that would be that much more powerful to that point about training with her father. One question I had is, I don't fully get her motivation for sort of spreading the religion. Does she think that she has some solution for the survival of humanity? I forget that from the first third that we read. Is that why, or does she just? I don't. I'm not fully understanding why it is important to her that more people follow what she believes is true.
I mean, I think it's just kind of the classic, like, you know, maybe there's an element of loneliness. Like she does think it has practical value, her philosophy, her beliefs, but she also just like, you know, she doesn't want to just live in a religion of one. She wants other people to be around her and sharing this belief, people she can talk to. You know, I think it's that craving for human connection is what drives her. Because again, it doesn't seem like she's craving power. That she hasn't expressed that. So if that's there, that's under the surface, and she's yet to like fully act on that yet. It seems more than anything like she just really wants to connect with people, and like for her to, you know, not be the only one in the world thinking these thoughts.
I think the
That's the part of the story doesn't really. No, go ahead, Chris.
No, go ahead, Steve. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, that's the aspect of the story that I just don't really. It's not really hasn't really grasped me yet. Like what's I don't really get the motivation to spread anything. It doesn't really strike me as a prophet. I don't really like as a leader maybe, but not as a. And also in this world, a religion is a tough sell. I think you're more likely to spread it with a cult because you have to offer something in return. And just to offer belief in a world like this would be tough to gain a following. You need to have something to offer them or something to rather than just a belief system, I would imagine. But that's a part of the story that doesn't really I haven't really they haven't sold it yet.
Yeah. I think because there's no guarantee it works, you know, per se. And I think she only merely has the ideology of the young in her head. I don't think she's thinking beyond her current circumstances and the current people she's with. You know, other than as long as I have the people around me who will listen to my poetry, my ramblings, my parables, then that would be enough at the time. Even though she does have, like in the beginning of the book, she had those aspirations of the Earthseed spreading to Mars and what have you. But yeah, you're right. I don't think it's at the level of prophet or anything like that. At this point, it's way too young.
Yeah, no, I mean she's not like a full blown prophet yet, but it seems like that is where her path is going.
Yeah, I mean we might be projecting a little bit onto that just because of the way we've heard of other religions, you know, expanding over time. More than likely, if something comes of this, it would be because of someone else and not specifically her later on down the line. That would be my guess, but it's just a speculation here. Speculations.
I think there's two things I'd add to it. And the first thing is that earlier on, she identifies that she knows she's right. She's absolutely convinced of herself because when she tries to convince Joanne at the start of the book, do you remember? And then Joanne turns her, she's not being talked down of the fact that maybe she doesn't have it right, so she believes she's right. And the second thing is her dad tells her you can't be a prophet. You can't go around be telling people like that. You have to do it another way. You have to teach them and you have to get in their ear another way. So ultimately, I think we're just seeing the very small growth of that at the moment. She has this message which she's very keen to share, but she keeps it hidden in her diary. And it's only when somebody asks to see her diary and she's sort of like has to pretend she doesn't want them to see it, but also here's just a wee bit, to read that and read it out loud for me, would you? For other people, just so that you can hear, just like you said, Jared. It's very incredibly manipulative in the whole way, but it's more about like, I want to see if even this small group of people that sort of trust and know me resonate with this a little bit. And it's just starting with the moment and saying, oh, it's just quite good at poetry. You should read some of her poetry. It's not bad. Read it out, read some more of that out again. And then it starts to become a message. And like an awful lot of cults, as Steve was pointing to, a lot of cults start from the idea that they are almost scripture-like. They come from people that have good knowledge of scripture, and they kind of, when they're talking and when they're speaking, it almost sounds like it could have come from the Bible, or it could have come, and she has the practice of the sermon and the teaching in the Bible to kind of make that fit. So she has all the training that you would need for this kind of thing. And I think it's really interesting how it's sort of like the little seeds. I often think it's really interesting where we stop in these sections, even though you've read like 2/3 of the book from a third of the book. It stops at a point you kind of see the possibilities of what you're just opening up now for the back end of the book.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the poetry that she did read them, I think this is true of pretty much every piece of poem in the Earthseed book that she's been writing, but she is sort of recharacterizing and redefining the idea of God, and people are receptive to that. So she is really choosing the bits that they might understand and like sort of gloss over a little bit, but build up enough of that they might be willing to redesign and rethink their God, just like she did. So yeah, that would be interesting to see how that progresses.
That line that she reads out is, all that you touch, you change. All that you change changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. It almost implies that the people are God, if you know what I mean. So actually everything that they decide that they want to do is a force. Because it starts with you change, and they say God has changed. And it's like, right, okay, again, that's the seed and the message that's just kind of sitting out there. And it's very cleverly written. Like, there's no doubt about it. It's so carefully constructed. And unlike an awful lot of other books that we read, again, this is another really short one. Like, in terms of like a fantasy science fiction novel, there's a lot of ideas, lots of characters, actually. There's quite a few of them, but it's very carefully put together. And everything feels like it has purpose.
Yeah. And for a first person story, it's kind of interesting how powerful some of the side characters are, right? Like the dad, it broke me when he left, and not left, when he couldn't return. And I guess Keith too. We got such a big roller coaster with his character. The stepmother, very interesting there too. So yeah, lots of interesting characters, and especially so for a first person story, I think. There was something else that I wanted to say, but I forgot.
Just as a side note, her stepmother's full name is Corazon Olamina.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that was given away in the book, but they gave it away. It was okay, all right. Because I was just like, I didn't remember that, because all I remembered was Corey, and then you just like reminded me to look that up.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, what a beautiful name, and why is it shortened to Corey?
A lot of beautiful names in this. A lot of beautiful names right throughout this. I think a lot of the characters, like the three people that they meet, some gorgeous names. Although, what's the is it the man called?
Yeah, the wife has that name.
He's nearly called Christmas. It's Navi. It's almost Navidad, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was like, that's a really, really pretty name.
Octavia died.
Yeah. And the other bits that are interesting, again, like, I think everything has a place and a point. It's the two interactions she has with two of the other people before, well, we presume that they die and one goes away. So she revisits her relationship with Joanne and gets a bit of closure there at the end, where she basically just says sorry for nothing, and we sort of feel, oh, she's sorry for the thing that happened way earlier in the book. It might have absolutely nothing to do with that. And then the little conversation she has with Curtis about going away together. And again, those give sort of insights into Lauren as a character and what her feelings is, because you contrast Joanne's feelings about her relationship with her boyfriend, why she wouldn't stay, and she had to go with her family. And then Curtis was basically saying to her, well, I'm going to go away with you. And she's like, Are you? Like, I don't think she had thought that part through, that somebody else would be wanting to go with her when she leaves. But it sort of does plant the idea that maybe somebody else will go with her. So those two interactions, I think, are interesting. All of those interactions she has with other people are so well defined and so interesting. Like, they make you pore over them and kind of think about all the intonations that people are saying, the way that they're saying it, their emotions, their facial language. If we could see it, I think there's an awful lot to read in those little sections.
Yeah, yeah. And for a long time, I thought that she might be going off into the wilderness by herself. But, like, given the negativity with which she wrote all of it, or how much she was preparing to sort of be by herself. So I was surprised very pleasantly when there were two additional people with her that are making the journey with her. And it makes sense. And also, in retrospect, it seems kind of silly that given what a survivor she is, that might be one of the first things she might try to do, to find people that she can stick together with. But yeah.
I like their characters too. Harry
Yeah.
pissed me off when he got mad at her for keeping the
Yeah.
hyper empathy thing a secret.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh my god, you're being such a baby about it. Grow up." But the two of them are interesting in their relationship. I mean, I saw that coming from a mile away, but it's interesting. Zara is very interesting. Her whole background and coming from that weird polygamous family that was like its own sort of cult. And I mean, God, I bet she's going to drink the Kool-Aid, down the line. She'll be all in on Earthseed.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Yeah, I guess that was one of the things I wanted to bring up for discussion. Do you think the way this religion is being built up, that it has room for fanaticism, for instance? Like, will it just be a bunch of very loyal followers, or will they at some point turn into fanatics?
Any belief system has room for fanaticism. It doesn't even have to be religion. So absolutely. Earthseed change. Are you kidding me? I mean,
fandoms.
Yeah, fire can be an agent of change.
That's true.
I feel like Forrest is taking notes here for how she can pick up some hints and tricks and how to get us to do exactly what she wants going forward. I mean, she's doing a pretty good job so far. So I mean, I feel like she should be writing the book rather than reading the book. But yeah.
Oh, I feel like I'm getting quite a bit of what I want already.
Yeah.
I'll wait a bit before I amp up the pace. I'm taking some notes.
It's the next step. That's why you want to read the sequel next. You see, you're like, this. There's only 100 pages left in this. I don't think I'm going to get what I need out of it.
Yeah, exactly. I get what I want, and I make you think that you're getting what you want. So.
Exactly. We're fanatics. Yeah.
Yep. We talking about Vash's
I'm really
flock?
excited to see her become a prophet, and I hope she kind of goes a little off the deep end, because I mean, what does it look like? First of all, the drama will be great, but second of all, what does it look like for a female prophet? Like, when we think of prophets, we typically think of like it as like a male archetype, right?
That's right.
And so how is her femininity going to inform her preaching, her personality, the sort of shape of the figure that she inhabits? I'm very curious to see that, but it does seem like we're pretty far away from that at this point.
Especially
to the extent that she's literally dressing up as a man.
Well, that was the point I was going to make. Especially because she's presenting as a man to start off with, and when people are coming towards her, they think she's a man and find out she's a female afterwards.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. The other thing I wonder if it'll play a role in all of this, in the religious world building, is if what role her hyper empathy will play. There was a bit in this section where immediately after the bad things happened, she was sort of sinking herself into the sense of pain, whatever pain she could feel, she tried to, so that she could forget about other things. So I did wonder if that would be her sort of escape mechanism, or how that would play a role in the development of the religion. But yeah, we'll see. anything else or any other bad predictions to make?
Uh,
I have a real silly one, right? And I don't know why this came to me at all, but I sort of feel like this. I don't even know why I'm saying this. I sort of feel like this mimics Britney Spears' hit career in a lot of ways, right? Bear with me a second, right? So the start of the book is "Hit Me, Baby, One More Time," which is our hyper empathy of how she's reliving other people's pain, right? It gets worse. We've got the section of right now. This section, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. We're in that section right now. We've probably got "I'm a Slave for You" coming up, right? And we even have "I'm Not a Girl, Not Yet a Woman," right, as well. Like, so it's all Britney hits at the moment. I'm trying to predict where the book's going with the chronology of Britney Spears hits at the moment. I don't know why this popped into my head when I was reading it, but I was like, interesting.
And this is called Chris's
Oh my
"Oops,
God.
I Did It Again" segment.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I was just looking
Wow.
at Carl the whole time you were talking. He had this expression on his face.
Well, it's one of those things. If I ever had the opportunity to ask Octavia Butler one question in the rest of my life, it would have to be, did you model this on Britney Spears' discography? I just have to know.
It was written in '93, Chris.
I was gonna say this
It
was
was
like
98. That was 98, surely. Yeah, I think it was 98. Was it 93? God damn it. Well, then it's reversed. Then Britney Spears modeled her entire career on Parable of the Sower. And there's an even bigger twist.
Yep. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yep.
That's even better. There's my one question of Britney Spears
you're
then.
annoying, man.
I don't apologize. I'm still not unconvinced.
You make a point. You make a very good point.
A very, very good point. Might be stretching it for us, but it's one that I had to get off my chest.
Oh man.
Oh, sorry.
Any other non-Britney Spears related predictions or thoughts?
No, I'm
Of all
not.
the predictions, that was the last thing I expected to ever hear.
It's not on my bingo card.
Yeah, not even on the bingo card. Yeah.
Oh god.
Okay, then I
Cars-
guess we're talking about
Car's
the short
never
story.
coming back. I apologize.
Carl's just gonna ghost us all. He's just
One
gonna
is-
disappear. We're never gonna hear from him again.
Well, at
You're
least
gonna
we'll know
wonder
why.
what happened to me. Am I alive? Am I dead? You'll find an arm.
Or have you went onto eBay and bought all Britney Spears back catalogue just to test it out with me? It's a rabbit hole. Ah, God.
Okay.
That was something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any Britney Spears thoughts for Arkady and Boris Strugatsky's short story?
Ooh.
We usually take only like 10 minutes. If you want to stick around, Carl, we'll finish talking about the short story.
The Visitors are my first Strugatsky. I think it was. Anybody else have read any Strugatsky beforehand?
No.
No.
What's the give us the short version there, Chris.
The short version? Okay. The Visitors.
Gimme.
Okay. Visitors by Arkady and Boris Strugatsky appears to have been written in 1958. Blah, blah, blah. It's a first contact story. And it is a building block for their later films, where it basically tells the story of somebody that sights what seems to be alien beings with a black helicopter. And he seems to be the only person that knows about it until they find diary and notes of a person that was supposedly went missing.
Yeah. Sounds about right. Apparently, the middle part, this is the middle of a 3-part novella.
Ooh.
Each of the parts were independently standalone. So the first part is about meeting an alien. The second part is whatever this was. And the third part was the story of an alien abduction. I guess
Whatever this
it
was.
wouldn't be.
Whatever this was is a good way to. Yeah. This a prequel to another series we read. Was it inspired by? Was the other
Oh,
series
you
you read
mean because
inspired
the
in some way?
spiders, the spider creatures? I don't know. I've read. I think at this point I've read at least 4 stories which feature spider-like alien creatures.
All inspired
Uh,
Babylon 5,
and I'm not
apparently. There you
counting. Yeah, and I'm not counting Children of Time
go. Oh,
series
yeah.
each as individuals. So
Forgot about that one.
yeah, but yeah, I did think of Children of Time, and then it went in such a different direction. And apparently, these
Yeah.
are machines, at least according to
Oh,
the guy
right.
interpreting their presence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Suspected machine, yeah.
hmm Apparently, they built one. The guy who wrote the diary, they built one in front of his eyes, and it went scampering off to go do its thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he stowed away. He stowed aboard to try to. He wants to
That's
meet
right.
the people who made the machines. So.
I like how he said, I'll eat meat if it comes to that. Like, I'll hang out with the cow and the sheep so that I have a supply of meat. How the heck are you going to cook the meat? And then the next night, I'll drink blood if I have to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, we've gone
It got
past the
dark.
cooking of the meat.
I got no
Dark.
water, but I'll drink blood. I was like,
Yeah.
okay.
So, like,
But,
I don't think there was much of a story. Like, I mean, it's very much just a kind of thing. But I really did like the writing. I loved the building of the world. It was sort of like almost like being trapped in a jungle somewhere and kind of trying to navigate your way out and kind of go by the lights in the sky. What else you see? The weird things that happen in a jungle around you. I really like the world building and the writing of it. And it sort of makes me very excited to read Roadside Picnic because, I mean, the film's incredible.
yeah, I mean,
In about 10 years, we will.
Yeah, and sure.
It's a very familiar setup for a first contact type of story. I mean, of course, this is older than a lot of the stuff we've probably been exposed to. So the stuff we've been exposed to, our lives might have been influenced by this, or something very similar to it. As far as you get the situation where, in this case, it was a mine or something like that. We had this, alien presence introduced, and somebody goes to find out what it is, and there's an investigation, and then there's contact, and there's one guy who goes the extra mile for that contact, and he gets taken up, and then there's somebody basically crying, "Hey, there's aliens," and nobody believing them, and what have you. And so that's we've seen that before, but this might have been before what we've seen, So it's interesting in that aspect. It's very familiar, It's and I did like some of the writing, but not much happens beyond that. What I just described, that's pretty much it. So it was okay. I mean, I definitely appreciate it for what it is, and
for sure.
But but yeah, not much to it other than that.
A little bit of found footage.
Yeah, it was a little bit of found footage. Yeah, I like that analogy, Steve. Yeah.
I'm gonna nod like I know what found footage is.
Was it a piscatory where they include letters and other documents from other people, or they find evidence and they or they find records from another person's experiences, and then they include them in the story, and they use that as a device to tell the story.
Okay, makes sense.
Most famous found footage thing is probably Blair Witch, even though it wasn't really found footage, but it's that idea where they found the tapes and then it makes it scary because it should have been real, or it was real, or whatever at that stage. This happened to people. But yeah, I like that analogy quite a lot, Steve, because it was very much the whole setup was just tell people what you've seen in your own way.
Yeah.
Don't dress it up. Just kind of put it out. don't think it was particularly scary. It might have been scary in the time it was written, but for us now, I think we've seen that imagery so much, and it's been sort of overused, a bit like Jared says. So it's maybe not horror like in our ways, but it's an interesting setup. And like I said, I did like the writing and the world building, so it gives me hope going forward.
It's very stiff. Very matter of fact.
Yeah.
Statement. Yeah.
Mm.
And it felt like it moved very quickly. Like, even though he's telling pretty slow things, like not a lot happens, it felt like the whole thing, it's like someone telling a story very urgently, not taking their time about it and giving details or anything. It's like, I just need to get this out of my system and then I'll be done. So I liked that aspect of it. It was also funny that the aliens didn't give a shit about the humans. They kept abducting cows and sheep and cars, but humans were like, nah, not interested. They only took empty cars. Yeah, so it was a bit of like a funny story that didn't take itself too seriously. So I enjoyed it overall. And there was one line about when he's talking about the site and how they didn't find anything interesting, the archaeological site there. He talked about how all the things they found, fragments of clay pots and completely contemporary scorpions. And if you're lucky, an old green coin. Contemporary scorpions, I thought that was hilarious. Yeah, that was a funny story. And I'm with you, Chris. I'm looking forward to reading more by them. I haven't seen the movie, but these are authors that have been on my list, as I think pretty much everything they wrote is in the SF Masterwork series. So
yeah,
I'm interested. Yeah.
So the movie of which I picked next is called Stalker, and it's a Russian film by Andrei Tarkovsky, and it is mind blowing.
Okay.
But very long, slow cinema. You know, you might hate it, but it also like, yeah. Anyway.
Okay. I'll check it out. Cool. Anything else before we wrap up? Okay. In that case, we'll see everybody probably next week or the week after with the last bit of Parable of the Sower and Belt by Carol M. Schwiller. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you soon. Bye.